Hello, friends, and welcome to our Sunday streaming services. If you're with us on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, drop a hello in the chat. We would love to say hi back to you. And if this is your first time here, go sign our guest book at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today's sermon is Creation as a Path to Authenticity with Paul Fucile. All right, announcements. New Vitas Craft Fair, we've been talking about this, is coming up next week, November 13th, and we have 2 tables. If you're interested in selling your crafts, your art, your stuffs, we get 20%, you get the rest, you get to sell your stuff and help your church out, which is always great. So if you'd like to participate in that, let us know. Email fundraisers@oakcliffuu.org. All right, the housing insecure population is growing and the weather is changing. If you have an old tent, know where we can find one, or are willing to patch used ones, please let us know so that we can put them to good use. All right, you should have gotten an email this week about the pledge drive. Don't ignore it, go find it, go read it, go do the stuff. We're looking to hire a minister, so this year's drive is especially important. Workday Wednesdays are back, so if you'd like to join us, show up any Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We'll even feed you. It's good times. This is a big one. The board will be meeting today to discuss how we should go about reopening the church. If you want to see what they're thinking about, or if you have an opinion, that's at 3 o'clock today. The link is in the e-blast. Speaking of which, check out the e-blast for all things UUCOC, board meetings, other meetings, links, events going on, president's message, everything is in there. Go check it out. Today is Sunday, so join us at 11:15 for Talkback and 1 o'clock for Adult RE. Member anniversaries! This one's really, really fun. They're all fun. They really are all fun, aren't they? All right, today, happy UUCOC anniversary to Sandra Kochenauer. Happy anniversary. And to my dear, dear friend, happy UUCOC anniversary, Jade Harrington. All right, I wish I had the dancing llama for you. To both of you and to everybody else, I hope that you have a very happy Sunday.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff's online worship services. Thank you for having the curiosity and the courage to join with us this morning. We welcome you, whoever you are, whatever spiritual tradition, gender, age, race, sexual orientation, or background you bring to our community. Know that you are worthy and that you are valued. We hope that you will find here comfort, connection, challenge, respect, and above all else, love.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Listen, the Spirit is calling by John Saxon. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of the day and the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name, and has many different names: the Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling us into the greater life of all. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. Amen.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Please join me in affirming our covenant to one another. Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance and service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos uno al otro, honoramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y acepción, así que hacemos pacto.
In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another, our joys and sorrows. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrow with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life. Knowing that together, we offer comfort. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your sorrows and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your joys and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning, all. I have debated at least 5 different ways to start this message, as a path has many points of entry. Yet, as I've sat down to write this on paper and not just in my head, there is a perfect plot unfolding. Now, we're going to start here, but we're going to go around the world a little bit. So the perfect plot unfolding is I'm taking a much needed but very brief vacation this weekend, and that this is broadcasting. So I'm literally in Florida as you're watching this. As well, because I'm not home for the holidays this year, we've decided to celebrate Thanksgiving the weekend that I'm here in Florida. As they say, it is here that our story begins. Now, I don't have a large family. I really don't. So the dynamics are fairly easy to see. What exactly do I mean by dynamics? Well, part of it is I'm just barely Generation X, born in 1980, but I consider myself a solid Generation Xer because I learned to type on a typewriter. I had home ec class, and I didn't have a cell phone until college, so I'm pretty solid in that window. My parents and my aunt's generation are obviously boomers, but my sister and her husband are millennials and pretty solid millennials. My sister had a cell phone in high school, early in high school. So pretty solid millennials, very much raised in the digital age. So that puts me right smack dab in the middle, which means that I get to see kind of the differences of both sides from where I'm sitting. So the plot then thickens. My mom was the cook of the family, which meant that she did most of the cooking for all the holidays. And then the meal where it happened traded off between my aunt's house and my mom's house, typically. But with my mom passing last year, things have been kind of thrown off kilter. So some questions, rightfully so, have arisen. Who will carve the bird? Now, my Uncle Jim bought the bird. We're having dinner at my dad's house. What's going to happen? My sister, the millennial, says, it'll be fine. They'll figure it out. For all of you gasping, I feel you. I very much feel you. Where am I going to stay / cook? Because truth be told, I'm a pretty fair cook myself. More importantly, my vote holds a fair amount of weight. Am I team boomer or am I team millennial? But it's way more personal than that. Am I team Tina, aunt, or am I team sister, Sydney? So I can see this playing out in explicit terms. And they're kind of immersed in the battle of wills. And I, in the middle, am negotiating and navigating a way that no one gets their feelings hurt or their toes stepped on. It's a pretty delicate balance. So Confucius lived in the year 551 to 479 before the Common Era, which means so you have old school would be at BC, and then you had AD. He was the ancient who emphasized the essential part of his philosophy that we might call in psychology today the family systems theory. Confucius was a humanist, and he held that familial roles were a quintessential part of social harmony. Confucius also considered that ordinary activities of human life, especially human relationships, were the manifestation of the sacred because they were expression of humanity's moral nature. Now, Confucius didn't really have his day until 200 years later, during China's Warring States period. So about 260 before the Common Era. So remember that before the Common Era, they count backwards. And when you get to AD or after the Common Era, you get counting forwards. So 260 before the Common Era was roughly 200 years later. And China needed a measure of structuralism to unify it. They needed some sort of unifying force. And it turns out this familial relations was something that spoke to the masses of multiple divided countries, if you will, or tribal regions. Because of this focus on right relations, And there was a hierarchy among generations, and there was an altruistic engagement with others. So someone might not be in your family, but you would approach them maybe sort of in the Buddhist perspective, where everyone you meet was once your mother, that understanding of a sort of social hierarchy. This was a perfect as history moved into modernity, or the Common Era. So we're getting into AD, the Common Era, which many Christians have labeled after Christ. And then you have before the Common Era is before Christ. A lot of us have these familial roles. I've just given a sort of example of them. But many don't track it back to Confucius. But we look at familial dynamics, especially in the 20th century, which was the height of modernity. And Confucius really set the model for how, like the example I just gave, my personal example, how those sort of developed into what we call modernity. Now, as we move into post-modernity, that's a new word for a lot of us. In the philosophical realm, it's not nearly as new as I think typical social construct. When we look at familial dynamics, post-modernity is an understanding that we're moving beyond moral rigidity. We're moving beyond structures. We're moving beyond right roles. Very much what typify modernity. That's why we call it modernity, because it was very structuralist, very architecture was very square and efficient and effective. So when we look at society today, many people, looking at your boomers versus millennials and Generation Xers just kind of disappeared somewhere, just saying, a lot of people are having a difficult time socially locating themselves because there's not these defined roles. And this is a big paradigm shift. And I feel like one of the really true ultimate sources of the divisiveness that is characterizing a significant portion of the world right now is that many of us don't know how to socially locate ourselves in society, because roles typify how we behave, how we interact with certain people, that sort of thing. Hierarchy, especially you get rid of gender norms, which typify the structuralism of modernity. So things are shifting and changing, and without this is your role, grandparent, everything comes to you. You need family dinner. All those things are kind of shifting. But really, that's its own sermon. I'm going to let that go for now. We're going to move on. So we're experiencing a period of growth, and growth is painful. We can see that in our physical bodies. When children are going through growth spurts, they often feel pain in their legs, pain in their arms. Some even develop fevers, which runs counter to their desire to eat everything in sight, because then they get nauseous. So the physical body is breaking open, and in little micro points, it's making room for new cells to come and make a permanent stay. Think of the bone. The bone breaks open, adds new cells, then it heals, but it heals bigger than it was before. And that's a painful experience. Now, my context is roughly middle class, distinctly a white American. That's my inherent bias. Here in post-modernity, it is important to own that bias, because in it, I recognize that my perspective may not apply or speak to or of the experience of a person of color from, say, China, where Confucianism still has a measurable impact. More to the point, these categories, race, sex, gender, and so on, we're discovering now more than ever, are confining more than they are empowering, as was understood at the birth of identity politics in the 70s. This may sound like I've digressed, but what I'm getting at is that there's a social and cultural inbreaking. We are bursting open at the seams, making space for new narratives, new perspectives, new lived experiences. There's no new norm because normal is dying. I know that's its own sermon. I'll add it to the list. Normal is dying. Categories are indicative of a defined structure. Yet we are reaching a point in society where the categories we are developing are defined by no structure: androgynous, non-gender binary, non-dualistic, defunding. These are defined essentially by not having a definition. We can't say, we can almost say what they're not, but we can't say what they are, if that makes sense. So non-dualistic means that if it's dualist, it doesn't work. But that's pretty much the only thing we can say about something being non-dualistic or non-gender binary. If it falls into the gender binary, we can call it gender binary. But if it falls beyond the gender binary, it has whatever its own definition is. It's not a category. When I finished seminary in the fall of 2011, the word authenticity was the word. It was in book titles, sermon titles, webinars, and they all touted it as the be-all, end-all of personal accomplishment and achievement. The personal growth industry made a pretty penny off of it, and I loathed every bit of it, precisely because it was like modernity's last-ditch effort to survive. What I mean, most books read, of course you don't need to fit into these modern social categories from the 1950s, so we updated them. Now find your new box and get in it, and you're sure to succeed. But now, not only are boxes dissolving, less and less of us are looking for new ones to fit into. Let me say that again in the affirmative. The boxes of social and cultural categories are dissolving, disappearing, and you don't need a new one. What does that mean? What does that really mean? Right? Really. It means that we get to own ourselves. Who we truly are in our hearts and our minds. We get to own it. It means our measure of accomplishment and achievement is not defined by some social paradigm. It means our worth is not determined by our conformity. It means that our external validation is not merely a reflection of our internal voice. It means that we can own our trauma. We can speak to it. We can call someone out when they attempt to gaslight us for their role in it. It means our accomplishments, achievements, and successes are our own, to be celebrated and not given worth based upon that came before us. That sounds real glorious, right? The crowning achievement of post-Enlightenment society, right? Maybe if we were in the 18th and 19th century society. Wait, what? Yes. Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, a never-ending beginning, or on an ever-spinning reel. History repeats itself. The Enlightenment period is attributed to roughly the 17th century, and its biggest success was the birth of individualism. Some might say we are experiencing a very resurgence of that right now. Think of what we said thus far, where social boxes don't define us. And therefore, in social and cultural terms, we're having difficulty locating ourselves. So it becomes real easy to understand how the individual can be celebrated over the community and the community's needs. And so proponents on the more conservative side of society, should they have the knowledge to, would certainly say that that's exactly what's happening. Yet, as we saw a rise in self-interest politics in the latter and Ayn Rand at the latter part of the 20th century and the early part of the 21st century, the conservative side has certainly they're criticizing the very reality they created. See, the world outside of us becomes a reflection of the world within. I believe it was Muhammad Ali that said the most dangerous place in the world was the 6 inches between his ears. Why? Because that's the place we create. In the 2 sermons preceding this one, I focused on creation in our community, external to our being. Yet the creation in our community is often limited by that which takes place within ourselves. I've not used an absolute statement here, i.e. always limited, because very often the group effort to do more for others than we do for ourselves thankfully outshines the limits of the individual. That said, imagine what we could accomplish if we saw within ourselves the limitlessness we see in our community. Limitlessness, dissolving of social and cultural boxes, not defining yourself by a category or validation without conformity, are magical. They're majestic and they're mystical. I'm going to repeat that. Limitlessness, the dissolving of social and cultural boxes, not defining yourself by a category, and validation without conformity, to say that I am someone without conforming to who someone else is predominantly in society. That's a magical and majestic and mystical experience. The practice of internal creation grants you the ability to reach beyond yourself. You are bestowed with the intuitive knowledge of places unseen, places without measure, and reaching into the infinite. What does that mean, really? What does that really mean? It means we get to own ourselves, who we truly are in our hearts and our minds. It means our measure of accomplishment and achievement is not defined by some social paradigm. It means our worth is not determined by our conformity. It means that external validation is merely a reflection of our internal voice. It means that we are able to own our trauma. We can speak to it. We can call someone out when they attempt to gaslight us from their role in it. It means that we can have our accomplishments, our achievements, our successes, and they're our own, to be celebrated and not given worth based on those who came before us. And as glorious as that all sounds, none of it's easy, not by any stretch or measure. Like the singularity of a black hole, it is often approached only to be met with retreat. Singularity in philosophical terms is a place of absolute authenticity. It is the absolute self, no two alike, no common narrative, no common experience. One is taken for themselves alone, which means that they have sloughed off all the negative, self-defeating patterns they've acquired over a lifetime of communal experience. We retreat from the singularity of the black hole nearly for the same reasons we retreat from the philosophical singularity. We have no clue what's going to be on the other side. Also, because humanity, Homo sapiens as a species, are inherently communal, no matter how introverted we are, most of us don't want to imagine our lives without those closest to us and how they've impacted us. My mother drove me crazy most of the time, but I can't imagine life without her. And I can't imagine a loss of love for art, for music, for finding beauty in the smallest things, for all of the life lessons that I learned, sometimes through her instead of from her. But most of all, I can't imagine the loss of having witnessed how a small little woman took on a massive world all on her own without a wince of fear in her eyes. I didn't always agree with the decisions my mom made, but I tell you what, she knew how to take the bull by the horns, and 8 seconds was only a warm-up. So we have to ask ourselves, what is real authenticity? Marianne Williamson, who was touted during, the authenticity phase post-seminary, writes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. I'm going to read it again. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. I absolutely agree. Absolutely. Here's the thing. Power is intoxicating. It's like having that first shot of Fireball in college. It only takes an ounce before the ego goes into full tilt. And before we know it, we are the furthest thing from authentic because we've started to play into the narrative that is external to us instead of the narrative that is internal to us. So, man, let me tell you. Can I tell you? Real authenticity, the root at us at our core, that takes that real authenticity, that takes humility. It takes kneeling humbly before the creation that we are, with a good, long, hard look in the mirror. examining moments throughout life, but not to judge. We're not looking to punish. Don't look to punish yourself. Don't look to banish yourself from the chaotic beauty of the world of your life. But just look. Discover the patterns of thought, and consequently the behavior that is given birth from those thoughts, from those experiences and those moments where you've developed coping mechanisms that develop to adapt to traumatic experiences that sometimes reoccurred. Then the justifications that you use to accept that maladaptive behavior. And then the justifications you use to accept the fact that who you are is not who you are. It's not who you intended to be. If we really look, we all reach those moments where we wonder if we are who we intended to be. And sometimes who we intended to be is not the answer. But those moments, it's okay. You're okay. It's okay to have those moments. We have to approach these moments, and they are many moments, not singular. It's not like Mount Fuji where you have one moment, but all of those little base camps along the way that you summited along the way, they're many, multitude. And you ask yourself, you have to decide, you must decide. Do I go forward? What is the way forward? How, for the love of all that is sacred, do I put one foot in front of the other? One foot, just one foot in front of the other. Because see, retreat's not an option. Look back as long as you need to. But don't turn your body around. Don't turn your mind around. The path of creation, the path of authenticity, is asking those questions. Sometimes in the deep, dark night of your soul. Do I go forward? What is the way forward? How, for the love of all that is sacred, do I put one foot in front of the other? Till one day, a little moment, little itty bitty moment, it reveals itself. And it will reveal itself. And in that revelation, that deliverance, in that very moment of mercy, we decide. We put stuff down, we pick stuff up, we repack. Those moments along the way, we sift and we sort through the trauma, the justifications, the adaptations, and we own ourselves because we decide who we are. Not the patterns out of habits, not the mimic behavior we picked up along the way, not the thoughtless rehearsals, but we've decided this is who I am. This is who I will be. It may not be who I intended 20 years ago, but this is who I will be. Creation, authenticity, the path forward. Here's the thing, humbly, humility. This point must be reached in love. Deeply felt love. So deep. in letting go of the hurt, in letting go of the pain, in moving beyond the trauma, in moving to compassion, to the true knowing that the moments that hurt, that were caused by another's hurt, and we in turn have hurt others in much of the same ways without even knowing. Getting to this place of deeply felt love, of compassion, of altruism. This is the place that robs the ego of power and robs power of the ego and becomes true, authentic power. Find this place. Rest in it. Many will join you. And what appeared impossible becomes infinitely possible. Thank you.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine.
This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring, both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and handiworks. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. To make an offering or fulfill your pledge, please go to oakcliffuu.org/donate and follow the links.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy. I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
Blessed by Our Connections by Susan Carlson. We leave blessed by our connections to one another, to the Spirit of life. Walk lightly that you see the life that is below your feet. Spread your arms as if you had wings and could dance through the air. Feel the joy of the breath in your lungs and the fire in your heart. Live to love and be a blessing on this earth.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an